Welcome back again. Today's reading comes from John chapter 8 verses 3 to 11. The stoning of the prostitute. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in the midst they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say?" This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, "Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her." And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on sin no more." To really understand what is happening in John chapter 8, you must understand there are three laws in the Bible: social laws, moral laws, and God's law. The 10 Commandments are God's laws. Adultery is forbidden as stated in Exodus chapter 20 verse 14, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." This was for both parties involved. Leviticus chapter 20 presents the law of the Levites, which extends to sexual acts for unmarried couples and the penalties for such sins, which included death. Deuteronomy chapter 22 verse 22 states that if a man is found lying with the wife of another man, both of them shall die, the man who lay with the woman, and the woman. But, in contrast, they could only be killed if there were 2 or more witnesses to their sin. During this episode where Jesus protected the woman by stopping her stoning and telling her not to sin anymore. While he didn't say she was not guilty or not by passing judgment on her, he did believe she was guilty. But those who were wanting to stone her were probably hypocrites and who were just as guilty. So he stated to them, "If you don't have any sin, or if you are not doing something you would equally be guilty of, go ahead and carry out her sentence." As it says in Matthew chapter 7 verse 1-3, "Do not judge, or you will be judged. For with the same judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but fail to notice the beam in your own eye?" Jesus showed compassion which, in his ministry he preached. As he stated in many of his parables, such as the vineyard owner, who hired workers during different times of the day, but paid them all equally. His point was you can change and still be able to go to heaven, no matter what part of your life you are in. Jesus, while stating she could be stoned for committing adultery, he stated that those who wanted to pass judgment and are free of sin shall go first, especially her accusers, who were part of her sin. The accusers left, and either they would have been stoned to death or would have been the first to throw stones. Jesus remained and stated he did not condemn her or pass judgment. If he did, he would have to carry out the punishment according to law. Instead, his judgment was to ask her to stop sinning or committing adultery. The men first asked Jesus' permission to carry the sentence. Jesus said yes, but only the one who has done nothing wrong will go first. In this case it was the accuser, who may have been the other half of the sin. This is very important because in Deuteronomy chapter 17, which says the hand of the witnesses shall be first against him to put him to death. In other words, the woman could only be first attacked by the witnesses to the crime. Jesus actually was speaking to the witnesses to her sin to stone her, but even visually seeing the sin, they may have been a part of the sin, therefore they may also be stoned. Because they walked away, there were no witnesses and the woman had no charges against her. Understanding what really happened in John chapter 8 gives us a better understanding of Jesus' attitude toward sin, compared to how the world often contorts the story in an effort to avoid judgment in their own lives. Many of us today are quick to condemn and, on the other hand, don't like being judged. Sometimes being judged helps us better understand how others see us and our actions. Getting angry at someone and yelling at them, like Karen does, only creates hostility. Instead, we should compliment, or if we are not content with the way a person acts, we should say either nothing or politely tell the person to straighten up. We don't have to go ballistic. If someone is littering, we should politely say, "You shouldn't litter." If they blow a gasket, you are in the right. They know better than what they are doing. Don't go to their level. Thank you and have a beloved week.